Welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show that looks at the highs and the lows from around world football this weekend. The Premier League is back, European football is back after a shocking international break. And get this for a talking point, Jose Mourinho has emerged as a shock target for Real Madrid. What the hell, Hamill?
Yes, that is rather shocking,
Vile.
but not as shocking as your weekend. Phoned me on Saturday, said that you'd had one of the worst nights of your life on Friday.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well,
Trying to give him a teaser.
Yeah, balls up. Halloween special was filmed on Friday night, and all I'll say is I cried on camera. It was genuinely the most horrifying night of my entire life. I'm still shaken by it now.
Talking of horrifying, let's pick back up with Real Madrid and Julen Lopetegui. We're actually going to cover them over on Euro Roundup in extensive detail, but we're going to talk about Jose Mourinho potentially joining them, according to Spanish/Catalan reporter Josep Pedrerol, who of course works for El Chingorito, notorious purveyors of bull. So take this with a pinch of salt. Apparently, Florentino Perez is waiting for the result next week in El Clasico before deciding on the future of Julen Lopetegui, who has lost his last 4 and 5.
I mean, it's always a good sign.
Almost broke the record for the club's longest goal drought. I think they just about avoided it by 15 minutes, stretching back to 1985,
Class.
that awful record as well. But before we delve into the very credible draw with Chelsea, that's kind of put Jose back on the back pages, do you think he's the right man for Real Madrid? Very briefly.
No. Absolutely.
Do you think there's any credence to this whatsoever?
Absolutely not. I think it's El Chiringuito just chatting their usual rubbish. Why Florentino Perez would move in for a player that he got rid of before bemuses me, quite frankly. He's still fallen out with Sergio Ramos, hasn't he, Jose? They don't like each other, and he's still club captain, isn't he? So it would be one of the most bizarre managerial appointments ever, I think, to reappoint Jose Mourinho, whose stock is as low as it's ever been. And then after a failed experiment with Lopetegui, it's been Lopetegui's worst 6 months of his life, by the way. He became the most hated man in Spain when he chose Real Madrid over the Spanish national team. And now he's been a disaster at Madrid, and he sold Ronaldo. It's awful timing, isn't it?
Yeah, the perfect storm for Fulham. But on to the match in question, because it kind of started how we expected. United deploying that deep block, sitting back. In fact, they only had one shot to Chelsea's 6 in the first 45. As the home side thoroughly dominated proceedings, largely thanks to the growing stature, the partnership of Kovacic and Jorginho. They were at the epicentre of all that was good about Chelsea in the first half, as well as the centre-backs, marauding forward, spraying passes about, of course, a threat from set pieces. But the midfield duo completed 160 passes between them, roughly the same as United's midfield 5 across the course of the 90, although their influence did wane second half, largely owing to how United came out, adapted, and sort of refined their game plan. However, despite Chelsea's possession and high chance creation, I think they finished on 21 shots to United's 7. They could only muster 1 on target in the first half and 6 on target in total to United's 4. So United did really well, I think, to limit the very obvious threats that Chelsea posed. Now, this was my sort of breakdown. This is how I understood it, watching it quite casually in the pub, admittedly. Now, Lukaku was the sacrificial lamb in your forward line, wasn't he? He had to, every time one of Chelsea's centre-halves came over the halfway line, he had to drop deep, he had to pressure that centre-half, which meant he wasn't playing on the shoulder. He wasn't very mobile in attack, much more of a defensive
He hasn't been mobile for about 6 weeks.
In this 90. Now, harsh, but maybe fair. Now, Mata tried to nullify Jorginho, which I think he did well for the first half, and he also sat in when Hazard and Willian tried to cut in, which sort of limited those channels, but a bit of a tall order, which is probably why he was hauled off for Herrera early in the second half. And your wide players for the first 45 were almost exclusively fullbacks, which kind of worked well because they're so pacey, able to transition well, particularly Martial down the left-hand side. But it didn't always work because David Luiz is such a good passer. However, United did get some joy out of Rashford on the right-hand side and Mata combining with him because Alonso, again, positionally suspect in this game. Now, I was extremely impressed.
He was awful
with Chelsea in the first half, and I thought Matic was terrible in the first half, but it really was a game of two halves.
Yeah, I mean, second half we were much better, but not hard, is it? And I'm getting slightly tired of Man United only showing up and playing like that and pressing from the front when we're losing a game. Every time, we never start like that, Manchester United. It always takes a goal to kick us into action, doesn't it? We pressed way more aggressively. The forwards were doing a much better job. The midfield finally got hold of the ball. Like you said, Matic, awful first half. Second half, he started to control the game a little bit better, and it opened up for the likes of Anthony Martial, and that is where Anthony Martial is so good. When he can isolate defenders, he's almost unplayable. Since his debut in 2015, no player has scored more goals for Man United in all competitions than Martial. That's 39. I think he's actually got 3 in his last 3 starts as well, which is really good to see that Alexis Sanchez has been dropped for a player like Anthony Martial. Although, I have to say, Romelu Lukaku needs a break. I've been saying it for 3 weeks. He's got to spend some time on the bench. Just get his head right, because at the moment he's undroppable and he's not playing well.
I think Alexis would have got some joy down the right out of Alonso as well. Alexis' chance creation has been very good this season, but yes, his finishing has been poor, so it bodes well that Martial decided to shoulder that goal burden.
Yeah, we had a horrible record at the Bridge going into this as well. 1-1 in our last 16 at Stamford Bridge. Last taking 3 points in 2012. So when they actually got that 97th minutes equaliser, it was an absolute misery compiler. Honestly, I was feeling devastated. I was sat next to Jalab. Do you know what really annoyed me? I actually just did like shot an Instagram story of zooming in on the scoreline, then zooming in on Jalab's face and mocking him. And the goal went in and I had to delete it.
Shot your bolt.
I was really annoyed. But then the melee happened. Fantastic scenes. Jose Mourinho getting taunted. He flew out of his dugout. Who was behind him? It was all of the coaching staff. Michael Carrick was piling in. It's just quality to see. Eric Bailly was out of his seat as fast as I've seen him move all season.
Yeah, I mean, Mourinho is throwing stones in glass houses when he talks about other people's touchline conduct. But what is that Chelsea physio doing? If I'm Maurizio Sarri, I'm actually embarrassed by his behaviour.
Proper Rui Faria moves, that was. That was some Rui Faria classics. And then
classless, man.
Jose, after the game, still not particularly happy. Roll that VT.
Jose, it feels like a game that will be remembered more for what happened in the last few seconds on the bench than for your team's performance on the pitch. What can you tell us?
I can tell you that the 97 minutes game was so good that you have to focus on that.
Okay, let's start with that then. What did you make of your team's performance over the course of the game?
The best team on the pitch. And if you say before the match, 1 point at Stamford Bridge is always a good result, because it's so difficult for teams to win here. But after the game, the way the game was is an awful result for us and a phenomenal result for them. In here, after the 2-1, we had again great positions to score the third goal. We were the best team. We were calm. We had complete control. And you know, I hope every referee does the same as Mike did, to give 6 minutes. But normally when I'm losing, I never have 5 or 6 or 7 minutes.
You showed Chelsea a lot of respect, beginning with your press conference on Friday. Said you wouldn't celebrate, didn't really celebrate either goal.
Yeah, I was in control.
Yeah. Do you think you got that respect back?
No, I don't think. But that's not my responsibility. You know, I have a certain level of education, socially and sports, and what I did here today, I will do one day in Madrid, in Porto, in Milan. I will try to behave always the same way which I did. But then the reaction of the fans is up to them. It's not up to me. What happened was with Sarri assistant, and Sarri was the first one to come to me and to say that he would resolve the problem internally with him. And after that, his assistant came to me in Sarri's office and apologized to me, which I immediately told, if you really feel it that way and you want to apologize, of course I accept apologies and forget it, because I also made lots of mistakes in my career. So I'm not going to kill you because of one.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, you've been poor this season, haven't you? Poorest, I think, conceding 1.6 goals on average per game. So, a lot to take from this. I think your expected goals conceded for this game was 1.8, but only owing to that massive late flurry at the end, where David De Gea has already made a double save before you concede. And you're starting to probe better in the opposition half. I mean, you're averaging 318 passes in the opposition half.
Yeah, but
per game.
All that is Matic passing to Young, passing back to Matic, passing to Shaw.
There's a bit of a U-bend in there, but I think with Martial in there, your passing becomes much more decisive. Someone with the intelligence of Mata on the ball and someone with the off-the-ball movement of Anthony Martial, I think will eventually pay dividends.
You'd hope so.
You're creating the 4th most chances in the league. You just can't score. Romelu Lukaku at the moment, like you said,
I mean, definitely the big issue is the fact we can't
He's not
defend.
even taking shots.
I mean, the issue is we can't defend. We have conceded more goals than Newcastle.
Yeah, but similar to Arsenal, if you can't defend, then at least make the most of your chances there in the field. Bludgeon teams with your attack.
But I mean, it's still not great, I'll be honest. I mean, first half we were absolutely diabolical.
But you know it is great,
We've forgotten
Joseph.
that 45, haven't we?
This start to the Premier League season, 3 teams now unbeaten after 9 games. This is the first time it's happened. Is this the best Premier League of the modern era?
I think this actually could be the most competitive Premier League I've ever seen. City and Liverpool are flying.
Yeah. And Maurizio Sarri, the way he's got Chelsea playing already, means that it's not just going to be a 2-horse race, in my opinion. It's going to be a 1-horse race. City are going to win it, and then who will finish second?
True.
But let us know what you think in the comments below. Let's pick up this energy, Joe. Come on. Our first winner comes from quick_KK_, and it's Manchester City because once again they thumped a Ginger Mourinho side.
Yeah, beat Burnley 5-0. A shocking Burnley, by the way, to maintain their place at the summit of the Premier League. Not a particular shock. It's the 10th time they've scored 5 or more goals since Pep took over the club. And they do currently have the highest expected goals and the best expected goals against in the entirety of Europe. Expected goals against is just 4. And apparently they should have scored 27. What is going on with that side? It's a side without Kevin De Bruyne, who finally came back on the weekend as well. And in this one, they tore Burnley limb from limb. 24 shots, 10 on target. Burnley failed to register a single shot on target as well. 2 of the goals, pingers. Fernandinho rolls out to the edge of the box, top bins, and Mahrez on the curl. It's outrageous. Sergio Aguero also bagged his 6th goal of the season in just 643 minutes, just 1 behind Eden Hazard now. In the process, he became the 3rd highest goal scorer in Premier League history on the weekend. What a player. This team is outrageous. It's outrageous. Kevin De Bruyne came back on the weekend. Did you see his first pass?
Yeah, he's been on the pitch about 90 seconds. The guy's already got eyes in the back of his head.
Get out, Kevin De Bruyne. You've no right to be playing that way after coming back from such a serious injury.
Mystic Meg vibes. Absolute third eye material. Burnley, however, are running out of luck, aren't they? In which they've had a fair amount over the last 24 months. They're second bottom for expected goals scored and expected goals against. Now, they're actually bottom as well in the Premier League for expected points. A lot of expectations.
Yes.
Burnley fulfilling none of them at the moment. They're below Cardiff. But Dyche not just annoyed with his side in this game. He was annoyed with the standard of refereeing, and he probably has just cause for it with a goal that should have been disallowed. It went out of play in the build-up to Bernardo Silva's finish, didn't it? And a red card, potentially very orange at the very least, in the opening 30 seconds when Vincent Kompany went Hong Kong Phooey on someone's penis.
Aaron Lennon's it was. Poor
Almost
old
took it clean off. Could have been given his marching orders for that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Should have been a red card. I thought Sean Dyche's interview post-match was absolute class when he basically admitted that he couldn't say anything to the ref, so just went fully sarcastic. He's like, nah, definitely shouldn't have been a red card. Definitely didn't go out of play. Definitely didn't get loads of decisions. It was so good.
But despite their woes at the back, they're just as bad going forward. Their joint top goal scorer is James Tarkowski this campaign with 2 goals. Now, it's the second time Dyche has shipped +5 goals to Guardiola. So, despite the standard of refereeing, it should probably set up slightly differently when it comes to the Spaniard. Also, not a happy return for City legend Joe Hart, who ended up fighting the post at one point.
Don't know what he's doing.
Squaring up to the
Ed's
post.
gone.
He's absolutely lost his marbles. But it doesn't get any easier for Burnley, who have Chelsea next at home on a Super Sunday. So another ass whooping incoming.
Yeah, ugly scenes for Burnley, man. I actually feel like they're going to go down.
I mean, there is some outstanding candidates this season, and they are right in it, aren't they?
Yeah. Our first loser of the day, a terrible result for Fulham. This one was suggested by @Keshav Mukherjee.
Not good for the Cottagers. They lost 4-2 away at Cardiff. Pretty damning when you're shipping 4 to a Warnock side, meaning they've now just won 1 of their opening 9 games, losing 6, and in the process conceding 12 in their last 3 and 25 overall.
25.
They're on course to concede plus 100.
That's awful.
Anyway, they've now failed to keep a clean sheet in the last 23 Premier League away games dating back to November 2012 against QPR. It was an action-packed first half, at the very least. A 30-yard beauty from Schürrle, goals from Murphy and Bobby Reed, but Sessegnon's 34th minute strike, his first in Premier League history, making him the first player born after the millennium to score a Premier League goal, ensuring parity at the break.
In my draft team as well. Well done, Ryan.
Goals from Callum Patterson and an 87th minute Kadeem Harris effort. Who is Kadeem Harris? Sealed the win and ensured Cardiff finished the weekend out of the relegation zone for the first time in 5 weeks. Warnock must have had a nosebleed at full time. Everyone knows that Fulham are weak defensively. This performance in that regard didn't take us by surprise. However, what's led me to believe, at least prior to this fixture, that they might avoid the drop is the fact they normally generate a high volume of chance or a decent quality of chance. In this game, 9 shots compared to Cardiff's 22. Only 2 teams are now conceding above 17 shots per game, which is Fulham's average, and that's Burnley and Brighton. This all makes for very bad reading for Jukanovic's side, doesn't it?
But a great day for Cardiff. This is their first win for 12 games. That's a record that dates all the way back to 2014. Obviously, they have spent some time in other divisions, though, haven't they? Also, the first time they've ever scored 4 in the Premier League. It's actually a record for their top flight all the way back until 1961. So that's, what, 57 years. What on earth is going on? Few key men in this one. Josh Murphy, he was brilliant. Tore Callum Chambers apart. Chambers actually got hauled off at half-time. 2 aerial duels, 1 tackle, 5 shots, and a really classy finish as well. At the other end, Sol Bamba. Brilliant, what a monster.
Warnock's
2 aerial duels.
Bamba.
Yeah, literally.
Has him everywhere, doesn't he?
2 aerial duels, 3 tackles, and a massive 7 interceptions. And the man in the middle running things, Callum Patterson as well. He's played all over the place this season for Cardiff, hasn't he? Centre mid, attacking mid, up front. In this one, 2 tackles, 8 aerial duels, 5 shots, 1 goal. But on the opposition side, Fulham, they've just got to stop making silly errors. Ream it was in this one. I think he gave away 2 of the goals, didn't he? Misjudged a loose ball for the second and then slipped for the 4th. Just not really good enough. It's all a bit sloppy at the back, and Jukanovic really is going to have to tighten it up, because if you concede over 100 goals, you're going down. And not good enough. Don't matter how good you are going forward, if you concede over 100 goals going backwards, you are going down.
The reverse Centurions.
Next up, Cardiff, I think, go to Anfield, though, so they could ship 13 there. If they're conceding 25 shots a game, they could ship 13 to Liverpool, because they are dangerous. Whereas Fulham host free-scoring Bournemouth, who I think are actually 4th for expected goals this season. And Callum Wilson is 3rd for expected goals. So they could get hammered by Bournemouth. Tough games for Cardiff and Fulham, those. But anyway, Cardiff, 4-2. What the f*** is going on?
Our final winners are Everton, and this comes after a last gasp victory. Thank you for your suggestion at Prime260. What happened?
Yes, they beat Crystal Palace 2-0 to record their 3rd win in a row for the first time since January 2017 in the Premier League. What is going on there? Pretty drab affair, quite frankly, before the hour mark, when Wilf Zaha was brought down in the penalty area and Milivojevic missed a penalty against Jordan Pickford. Pickford actually admitted after the game that he forgot to do his research about the penalties as well. So, a bit lucky to save it, but nevertheless, it came back to haunt Palace, didn't it? I would say, though, 2-0 probably a deserved result. Everton had 20 shots in this one to Palace's 7. So, Palace not as good as they could be, and Marco Silva deserving of the plaudits.
Yes, because he was a dab hand with his substitutions yesterday, wasn't he? Calvert-Lewin, Lookman and Cenk Tosun all contributing after coming on. Obviously, the goals both within 2 minutes of one another, so it all came at the death. Michael Keane, though, was a shoo-in for man of the match. His long ball set up Tosun's strike at the end. The centre-back also won 9 aerial duels, which was a match high, completed 3 tackles and helped Everton to their second clean sheet of the season. The Toffees now sit in a respectable 8th, 1 point out of Manchester United, who they play at Old Trafford next weekend.
Tasty game, that.
Let's move on to our last section.
Our final losers of the day will come as no surprise to the Toon Army. It is Newcastle. This one was sent in by Mudabahal_OM.
Yeah, no surprise there. Like you said, they slumped to a shocking 1-0 defeat at home to struggling Brighton. The proverbial 6-pointer. Kayal's goal, the difference between the two sides. And talking of two, Newcastle are now bottom of the Premier League on just 2 points. They're just the 4th team in top flight history to lose their first 5 home league games of the season.
Shocking, that.
And they've now just scored 6 goals. 2 of them came against United as well.
How have they only scored 6 at this stage of the
in this
season?
game, I do feel sorry for them. They took 27 shots, 6 hitting the target, which is about par for the course. But as usual, their forward line letting them down. If you're Rafa and you're seeing your goal-shy side create 27 chances and not score a goal, you are pulling your hair out if you had any left.
It's awful, mate.
Gone. He's now losing it off his back, his arms, his shoulders. He's just shedding it. He's so
I think the
stressed.
closest they came to a goal was that John Joe Shelby chance.
Like an old cat. Joselu is now still their top goal scorer, with 2, and Kieran Clark second with 1. So it's no surprise they're dead bottom for XG this season in the EPL. We've gone XG mad this section. So, but still, if we're trying to provide a silver lining for Newcastle fans, your defence is still about the 10th, 11th best in the Premier League according to expected goals conceded on 14. Better than United's, who've actually conceded 16.
I know, that's a joke, by the way.
Come January, you know, if you've made it off for 2 points, maybe buy a striker.
Finally, realise it. If Rafa's still there in January, because I've got inklings that Ashley's gonna chop him pretty soon, which would just be an absolute disaster. I think there'd be riots in the Toon, wouldn't there? But Newcastle's pain kind of came as Houghton's relief, didn't he? The ex-Newcastle manager, who's still, by the way, loved up there, won his first in 4 attempts at the bridge at St James's Park as an away manager, and it was only their 3rd win of the season, their first away from home. Came all the harder as well because Glenn Murray had to be taken off early doors with a serious head injury, didn't he? Rushed to hospital. He is now fine though, so that is good news. After the injury, they were pretty much forced to play counter-attacking football, just 32% possession, and the centre-backs were brilliant in this one. Dunk and Duffy a combined 8 blocks, 6 tackles and 34 clearances. Duffy and Dunk, wow, hats off. I think joint man of the match. Next up for Brighton though are Wolves at home, Newcastle against Southampton. That is going to be a diabolical mess
Avoid
of a
that
game.
at all costs.
If that's on TV, I'm definitely not watching. If anybody watches Newcastle versus Southampton, then there's something wrong with them, because that's definitely going to be 0-0.
Yeah.
So that's the end of winners and losers for another week. Camel, what's happening on Euro Roundup?
In an hour's time, we're discussing Real Madrid and Barcelona. What an excellent game that was against Sevilla. Not so much Real Madrid versus Levante. Of course, as always, Stat Wars the League. Catch up on Saturday's episode and Thursdays from last week. The table is really hotting up. And tomorrow, we have a live stream. We're doing Manchester United versus Juventus. Armchair Fans is back, baby, on this channel, so stay tuned. And as always, if you made it to this point, send us a screenshot for a personal thank you. That's winners, that's losers. So this screenshot.
Bye!